Deb, you're all set? Recording once you're good, Deb?
Yep, now it is.
Oh,
You're not set.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Southbury Planning Commission to order. Everybody can join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Seating of alternate, let's see, we don't need to, we're all here. Okay, perfect. Unfinished business, site plan modification application, 121 Main Street North, Southbury Shell signage. Let's see what we got here.
Nothing has changed since
Okay.
the last time.
All right,
I've contacted them several times. I still can't pin down the exact information I need. I had Don Antilla come in and review the lighting requirements and what was submitted, just to make sure I wasn't missing anything, because the lighting section of the regulations is very complicated. And he's pointed out exactly what was missing, and I
okay.
asked him again.
And we didn't get any response back?
No.
Okay, we'll have to just,
I'm not sure when this was exactly received. Do you have that information, Debbie? This is, Shell.
this was on last month, so,
121.
oh, so that's 90
Yes,
days then.
121 Main Street North, sorry.
So that's over 90 days.
Application was received?
Yes.
I have that here. She has February 3rd on here.
Okay. February 3rd, so 90, February, March, April, May, so,
It's over 60 days.
yeah. So is that 90 days?
What's that?
Do they have 90 days or 60 days?
I think they have. It's a site plan modification.
We could just grant them an extension.
I think it's 65. Okay,
So we'll have to just, yeah,
It is over. I thought it was received at, the first time it was heard was the last meeting though, wasn't it? Is that how that?
it was definitely on last month, I know that.
Yeah, that's the date that Annie has on here, but the first time the commission heard it was April 20th.
Okay, so we'll have to push it off to the next meeting then. If we don't have an answer by then, they'll be at their limit of time.
Motion to continue to the next meeting.
Okay, all in favor of continuation? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 65 days.
65 days, so
So April would put them to,
From the meeting or from application, are we?
from.
Deb says from the meeting, so
Okay,
either way, we'll give them till then. And if they don't come up next month, we'll have to send them a letter, let them know that they'll have to start the process again.
Yeah,
The way it looks. Okay. All right, moving right along. New business site plan modification application, 56 Main Street South, Sitco Station signage. And then I heard you talking over here to our applicant, so are we going to, just continue next month at this rate, since we don't have anything ready?
correct, yes.
Okay,
Motion to continue to March 15th.
I'll second it. Is there anything,
June.
June 15th? I'll second it. Is there anything that we need to hear from the applicant while he's
I
here?
think if you would like to get up and
We might as well
speak,
just,
because this is an unusual.
How you doing? I'm Coach
Circumstance.
Anybody have any questions
The owner
for
of
the applicant while we're here?
Sitco.
yes,
The reason we're here is that in 2019 we had approval for the same LED sign.
speak into the microphone for us.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. And we had the variance because we're
Yep.
all the way in the back.
Yep.
So instead of 10 feet high, we went to 20 because I wanted to move the sign by the road like Heinz Brothers. By the time I was told, I thought that was on my property, but I'm on state property. So I couldn't move the sign from that position for the 10-foot height, which will be signed off by the zoning, from the zoning enforcement officer, I was told. But because I could move the sign, we have to keep at the height, or I have to go apply for the state permit.
Right.
So we did both. We applied for a variance. Then at the same time, I applied at the state just in case if I get approval from them, because I was told that it might be more difficult to move on the state property. It took, because of COVID, took probably 14 months to get approval from the state, which they approved. And then, as I said, in zoning, we're approved for the same LED sign that we have today. The only difference is from 20 foot, we're going down to 10 feet. That's required for zoning and planning, whatever commission.
Yeah.
The only difference is that we're moving the sign from that position to the next one. So that's why we're here. But my understanding was that that sign was approved for the illumination and all that, but I don't know the difference.
Coach, the problem I'm running into is there's no specs on the illumination.
Yeah, we sent you an email.
No.
On the 15th, I was late. That's why.
No, on the one that was approved. If I had that information, I could apply it towards that, but there's,
Okay, I don't know that. I know there was approved for the sign.
well, no,
They could
I'm
not
just-
approve that without those specs. I don't know how they approve it, but
Right,
don't-
I'm just saying that.
I'm not arguing with you on that.
No,
I'm just
I'm
saying.
not trying to argue, I'm just trying to explain where I'm coming from. It may be the same exact illumination, but I have nothing to compare it to because there's no information on the existing sign.
I
So-
agree with you if it's not there. I'm not sure if it was
Right.
there, it's not. I'm not
That's
arguing
Right.
that, but I'm
No,
saying
I'm not.
that's the only thing is missing is that piece of information which they supplied to me.
Correct.
We talked about the illumination on last Tuesday, right?
The new one's done.
I'm sorry?
We talked about illumination last Tuesday,
Yes, and you contacted.
so it's a
the
week
bank.
ago. I called the company, then I got there yesterday, so I didn't
Right.
know
I
if,
contacted them as well.
Yeah.
They-
so it came late, but not much I can do about that.
Alright, so-
I didn't know the illumination was the case. I could gotten before. I applied on the 4th. If you told me that day, I could gotten first, but I heard a week ago.
Right.
All right, so then we're gonna review it, and Jessica will, and we'll get it done for you next month.
Okay, no, it's
Okay.
no problem. I'm just explaining what happened.
No problem, it's good, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
State approved it, the town, we have to also for our regs.
I'm sorry?
I said our regs apply, even though the state approved it.
Just because the state approved it, you have to still abide by the Southbury.
No, I know that.
Double check that, and
No,
we'll get it
no,
done for
no.
you.
I'm not arguing about
Okay.
that. It's nothing.
Yeah, all right.
I was glad they approved because
Yeah.
otherwise I'll be with the one that we have there. But
So we'll, June, 16th meeting? June 15th meeting, all right, we'll put you on the
Okay.
schedule, all right?
okay.
So all in
no problem.
favor of tabling? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, pass
Thank
to
I'll
next
be in
month,
touch with you.
okay?
So I'm clear. The only thing you need is that
Is
you
it
gotta
there?
review that because you
I
have the
need to review
information.
it and make sure it's all there, and if it's not, I'll be in touch with you either way, for sure.
Yeah. So I
Yep.
don't want to get surprises down the road.
Nope, and then we'll see you at the next meeting, and then we'll take care of it there,
Okay.
okay?
Thank you, guys. Have a
Thank
good
All
night,
right,
everybody.
have a great night.
Have a good night.
Also, or is it all state property?
I'm
Do
sorry?
you know where the town line is?
There's actually a picture of it, and,
The town-
yeah,
Yeah, it's in the, there's a picture of it in the
it's all
online.
state, yep.
There's one of these emails that Deb sent, there's a picture of it. All right. Other business, 8-24 referral request to purchase town property, Atkins Peach Orchard. Everybody kind of look through that? So the board's just looking for us a recommendation back to say, yes, it looks good. Everybody have any, Ron, wanna start, any ideas, thoughts on it? You're okay with it?
Pretty straightforward.
Okay, Bob?
Is this the, same property that we heard from a different property owner that was trying to acquire this?
That's the same one that the last one we rejected it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that
When?
this- Last month?
No.
No.
No?
A year ago, maybe?
Or was it a year ago?
So I didn't include it in this review because I didn't want to make it confusing. The Atkins applied for, they requested to buy this property, I think it was in 2005, 2011, and they were finally approved for it in 2019. They were denied those to previous times because the town had not decided on what to do with the Shilkey property. Are you familiar with the Shilkey property? I included it in my review. I'm asking if you're familiar with it, because no, I didn't include it in my review. I didn't know anything about it until I did this. It's town-owned open space that the town was debating about what to do with it. But I guess the town's owned it for quite some time. And I guess in 2019, they finally decided that they weren't gonna combine them all, these lots with that open space, and they decided to give the Atkins a piece of what they were asking for. Now they're asking for additional lots that abut their property, and essentially it would make their lot more conforming, and it would provide a septic reserve area. So it really does fit well in with the town's policy for disposition of town-owned property. As
Yeah,
far as, I'm sorry.
A year ago, remember a year ago, we said one parcel. I'm looking at the letter here, the 824 backdate from a year ago, 2 years ago, actually.
Yeah, 2019, I believe
Yeah,
it was.
2 years ago, it says right here, the planning commission considered a request at the meeting April 16, 2019, vote to recommend that only one parcel, 12-2-5, be sold to Mr. Atkins to combine with his existing land. And now he wants the other ones?
Correct.
Well, did he actually purchase the 12-2-5?
He did, yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So now he wants 12-2-6.
And 11.
Right, and 11.
I don't see it.
And the Board of Selectmen here on May 16, 2019 approved that as well.
It doesn't say why the other one was not,
Doesn't it say that because it wasn't adjacent at the time? Parcel 12-6 is not adjacent and should not be considered.
Can't hear you, Alex.
Oh, I'm sorry. The letter that
oh, yes.
Rich was just referring to said that 12-2-6 was not considered because it wasn't adjacent to the property.
Right.
But now
Now it is.
Now it
yeah.
is.
Now it is, so that seems like the circumstances have changed.
Right, after he bought the 12-2-5, now 12-2-6.
Isn't he
is
still
adjacent.
wanting to buy that, or did he buy?
No, he is, that's one of them in question is 12-2-6.
No, I mean, I'm sorry. The 12-2-5 is highlighted as wants to buy, even though it was approved.
No.
No, he owns that,
No, the whole thing in red is what he
Whole thing
owns.
in red is what he owns.
correct.
Oh, I'm looking at,
Yeah, I'm looking at the original map too as well, the one way back down in the packet. You can see where it's highlighted Atkins Town and wants to buy under red and green.
yeah, the 12-2-5
way back.
still wants to
It's
buy.
number 5 of 5 of the PDF, way at the bottom of it. You can see the key, it says wants to buy is in green and red. So that's what they're here for tonight, they want 11 and they want 6, right?
Correct.
What's confusing though is unless the parcels changed numbers, which I don't think they did, was 12-2-6 considered not adjacent and not considered, but 12-2-5, which would have made it adjacent, was
Well,
allowed?
because at that time, he didn't own 12 dash.
Yeah, but why wouldn't we have said you can buy them both if you buy them both?
I think they were taking it very literally.
okay,
Like at
yeah.
that time, it wasn't adjacent. Yeah, you're right, though. That's kind of odd.
I see no problem with it. I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah, I seem to remember something about, town-owned open space, not knowing what the town wanted to do with it. I also vaguely recall some sort of neighbor issue, but I don't remember. At this point, without any other
What-
thing to go by, I don't see any reason to
Was
withhold
this
this.
the one with the fence that was over on the one property? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
There was a fence that,
So he owns this one too, way over here? This and this?
Is there
This
any
open space
other
for the town?
adjacent property that's non-conforming that's gonna get shut out? with
I
this?
didn't look into that. According to the policy, it's kind of a first come, first serve
And this would make his
It
a
would make-
conforming lot.
Yes, because he's got an interior lot.
Motion for a positive referral to the Board of Selectmen.
Can I ask a question?
Of
Yeah.
course.
12-2-11. It's sticking out. Is that, he wants to buy that also?
Yes.
Correct.
Yep.
Because he owns 12-2-3 and 4 right there. So it would be it's
Yeah,
adjacent.
it's right
He
next
owns
to
5.
his house.
You know, I see he owns 5, he
Right.
owns 3 and 4, he wants to buy 6.
And 11's right next to it.
Yeah, that's over here, but it cuts off 12 and 10. What about those people? If they wanted to, that just means nobody can put the lots together. and
Well,
make
8
them conform.
He owns 12.
8 and 9 could.
You know, judging by this GIS image, and I could be wrong because the GIS is so often inaccurate, it looks like the guy that owns 8 and 9, it looks like he already owns 10. Half his pool is on 10.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
But there's another outbuilding there.
He does?
It appears that way.
Yeah.
But again-
8, 9, and 10 look all together. Right. Half his pool's on the other people's property. I mean, hey, they're shared a pool. I agree with Bob. I see no problem with it. So we have a motion on the table to approve it. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Nancy did, right? Nancy did? Approved unanimously. All right. Affordable housing plan discussion with Malone and McBroom. You guys are up.
He's up. Thank you. Anytime you did that, I can go through this.
We're only a few hours early of taking their masks off.
He moved 6 feet away, so.
Oh, I see.
Nancy and I are vaccinated. We're actually, we're all vaccinated here.
Evening, everybody. So Pat Gallagher with SLR, formerly Mylona McBroom, a new name but same company. We're based out of Cheshire. And so thanks for having me back to talk a little bit about affordable housing plans. I know we touched on it a little bit during the interview, but here to just speak a little bit more to our approach and our experience and answer any of the questions you have. Jessica did forward me your questions in advance, so I tried to roll those into the presentation to the greatest extent that I could.
Sounds good.
So to start, I just wanted to go over the state legislation which passed back in 2017. This is section 8-30J, and it's pretty vague. There's not a lot of specifics attached to this legislation other than you have to adopt an affordable housing plan every 5 years, with the main part being the plan should specify how the town intends to increase the number of affordable housing developments within the municipality. This does not mean you have to hit that 10% state requirement after the end of the 5-year period. Merely, I think it's expecting every town to make a good faith effort to increase the number of affordable units. You may hold a public hearing similar to your plan of conservation and development, but you are not required to. If you do a public hearing, then you do have to follow the 35-day public comment period and post the draft in advance to give folks ample notice, as well as posting it on your website and filing it with the town clerk. But again, that's up to you and how you want to approach this. You also do not need the endorsement of your legislative body. So many of the communities I'm working in are at least presenting it to the Board of Selectmen or town councils just for their information, but not expecting them to actually take action. And then the final part of the statute's really just talking about how this plan needs to be updated on a regular basis through amendments or your 5-year updates. So a good framework for how to approach affordable housing plans is to use the state guidebook, which has a couple different components which are important to touch on. Some of these are going to be similar to what we look at as part of the POCD, the community value statement really being your vision statement for the community. That's going to apply to both documents. Looking at the state of affordable housing, I know when Jessica sent the message to me, you all seem very aware of the number of affordable units you have currently, and so just talking about which type of units you currently have. The housing needs assessment and land use and zoning assessment are, again, topics that can be rolled into the POCD. Maybe we'll take a deeper dive on some of the housing needs as part of the affordable housing plan, but a lot of that effort is redundant. So it's actually good timing that you're doing both of these concurrently. And then finally, the plan goals and strategies, as well as your implementation plan. So this will look, again, similar to a POCD, but it's going to be way less exhaustive. Your POCD is going to have 30, 40, 50 actions. These affordable housing plans are really meant to focus on the 2 or 3 most important things that your community wants to tackle over the next 5 years. And because the state statute is so vague, it really is an opportunity to have kind of that bottom-up approach as opposed to that top-down. The state has not specified exactly what needs to be included in this, and I think the state did that on purpose in order to spur conversation with the community. This is not them coming in with their one-size-fits-all approach. We do know there is legislation ongoing that we'll continue to monitor, but that is not going to change the statutory requirements under 8-30J as far as we know. So this process can continue regardless of what happens in Hartford over the next few weeks. So our approach as consultants is to really be your analysts and our facilitators, knowing that this is your plan and this needs to reflect your community's values. We're working with several communities at the moment, and all of them have different philosophies on how they want to tackle affordable housing plans. Some communities are taking a little bit more of an active approach, while others are continuing kind of their past efforts. And so we're not here to tell you what's best for your town. Our job is going to be to educate you on best practices, provide case studies on what other communities in Connecticut are doing, and then facilitate that conversation with the community. So one of the things we put together as part of some of our other work is just some educational materials on what is affordable housing, knowing that there's a lot of misconceptions about what affordable housing is. And while multifamily apartments are a part of affordable housing can be single-family homes as well. And so we really try to make sure that folks understand that when we're talking about affordable housing, we're talking about housing in general and how affordable housing can be a part of your town's housing stock, rather than saying it's a monolithic one thing. So currently we're working on 3 municipal affordable housing plans. I'm the project manager for our current projects in Farmington and Mansfield. We're also working in the town of Weston, a rural community, lacks sewer service, and so I brought some examples from that plan to share with you tonight, knowing that sewer is a big limiting factor here as well. Those first 3 plans are all on a June 30th adoption schedule, so we should be wrapped up with those in advance of starting years, so it shouldn't be an issue of having the staff to do it. We're also doing a regional plan in the lower Connecticut River Valley. We haven't kicked that off yet, but do anticipate doing that over the summer and throughout the fall. And again, they share a lot of commonalities with you as predominantly rural towns with some infrastructure limits. We've also incorporated the 8-30J statute into 2 of our recently adopted POCDs in Bethel and North Brantford. These were embedded in the POCD and are slightly different than what we propose with you, because these actually were adopted before the state issued their guidance on how they'd like these documents set up. So to give you some examples of strategies, I wanted to kind of go through some case studies from some of our other clients that we're working with currently. So I'll start with Weston, which is a community that I think shares a lot of similarities to you. They're really focused on their village center and recognizing that they don't have sewer service. They are limiting kind of this effort to really their village center district. And they're a very monolithic housing stock community. Everything's single-family homes on 2 acres or more. And so part of the conversation there is about housing diversity in general, beyond just affordable housing. So one of the strategies that we're looking at at Weston is to incorporate new housing types into their village district. And so they're studying right now adopting a village district zone, and included in that study is evaluating different housing types that don't currently exist in Weston that could be supported in an area that lacks sewer or water infrastructure. And so that includes potentially some small mixed-use development with commercial on the ground floor and residential uses above, or some small condominium or cluster single-family homes set back from the roadway along their major commercial corridors to preserve that commercial focus and also that rural sensibilities. One of the other things that village districts allow you to do is to more stringently regulate design, both architectural, site design, and landscaping. And so part of that conversation of looking at new housing types is to ensure that it meets the community's what we'll call character and values. But based on some of the legislation in Hartford today, character, I think, is going to be looked at a little more stringently as a standalone. And really what you need to do is establish criteria. What is character? How do you define it? And so by using the village district approach, you can define what that means using particular materials, for example, for your siding, particular roof types. That's all specified. So it kind of enshrines what you mean by character within your code. Another strategy that we're exploring in Weston is open space subdivisions. Their Planning and Zoning Commission wants this to be a more long-term goal, knowing that the village district is going to be their near-term priority. This again is a strategy that could apply in a rural area that lacks sewer or water service. And this is a topic that they really need to study further to identify potential sites where this type of strategy may be appropriate. And open space subdivisions basically take development as of right and allow it on smaller lots in exchange for a portion of the site being preserved as open space. So if you have a 10-acre lot under 2-acre zoning, rather than having 5 2-acre lots, you may have 5 1-acre lots and then 5 acres preserved as open space. So this could be a potential strategy, and it may or may not be affordable depending on the zoning requirements that go along with it. If you require a set aside of units as affordable, then that would count towards that 10% per state statute. But in Weston, it's also, we're taking it as a conversation about housing diversity in general. So these may or may not necessarily meet that statutory definition, but will nevertheless introduce a new housing type that doesn't currently exist today. So we're also working in the town of Farmington. They're a little bit different in that they do have some sewered areas and can support some higher intensity uses in certain areas. But one topic we're exploring with them in detail are what's called accessory dwelling units, also known as accessory apartments. And most municipalities in Connecticut have accessory apartment regulations that dated from the 70s and the 80s that really haven't been looked at in quite some time and may not align with the current thinking around accessory dwellings. And so what the accessory dwellings are a standalone apartment that could be either attached or detached to the main dwelling. An in-law apartment being a good example of an attached accessory dwelling unit. But more and more towns and cities are looking at detached accessory dwelling units as a housing type that could fill that need for smaller housing units in more rural settings. So in Farmington, we're taking a deep dive at their zoning regulations and proposing some reductions in the regulations while still keeping those reasonable restrictions to protect health, safety, and public welfare. So they're a community that currently does not allow detached ADUs. I think you fall in that boat as well.
Actually, no, that was just revisited last year and now
Summer.
we
Oh.
do.
Okay.
Detached?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh,
Yeah, we passed that.
Well, great. So there you go.
Ahead of the game.
You can enshrine that in your plan to show progress you've made. They also had rental restrictions, so it had to be a family member living in the unit, as well as some outdated parking regulations. And so this is something where we're also taking somewhat of a wait-and-see approach, knowing that accessory dwelling units are also one of the topics being talked about in Hartford right now. And out of all of the different topics, this one seems to be the one that may have legs and result in some changes where towns will actually have to modify their zoning to comply if they're non-compliant. But at least it sounds like you've had some of those conversations and maybe well positioned there. I'll also bring up the Southbury Training School Future Use Study, where we identified a portion of the site that could be suitable for senior rental housing. When we did our community survey as part of that project, there seemed to be support for senior rental housing as opposed to owner-occupied. And this, again, could be something that's enshrined in the affordable housing plan, identified as a preferred site, this being one of your few sites that is sewered and could support some of those higher densities. And so, these aren't intended to be, how do we build 800 units to meet the 10%? It's about making that good faith effort and working with you all to really hone in those strategies on the ones that are going to best meet the needs of your town while protecting all of the things that make it a great place to live.
I thought age-restricted housing, though, does not
Does not qualify.
for affordable housing units. Is that correct?
I'll have to look at the definition. I don't know off the top of my head. The big thing for getting towards that 10% goal is having protected affordable units. There's a lot of towns that do have senior and disabled housing that's deed restricted. That does count towards their 10%. I'm not sure about properties that would be privately owned and developed, but I do believe that so long as there's the affordability restrictions in the deed, that it would count.
So it has senior over 55 and affordable, has to have all three.
In order to be considered affordable per state statute, is to the best of my understanding, and I'll have to look into the age restriction thing, is it needs to be protected affordable. So that means reserved for income eligible households. And that's typically done through a deed restriction. It can also be, there's some private, public subsidies such as housing vouchers or subsidized mortgages that also count. And those are not deed restricted per se. Those are funding programs where the state or federal government provide some sort of gap financing to then allow people to find affordable units in the community that are, just like any other type of housing.
It was my understanding that, I'm trying to think of the name of the units down on 172.
Grace Meadows?
Grace Meadows is not considered affordable housing. Could not be considered affordable housing because it's housing federally sponsored and it's senior community. I was told that it could not be included in an affordable housing plan.
It might be able to be redeveloped.
Sounds like we've got homework to do.
Well,
Yeah.
it sounds like it might be because of the deed restrictions. Does it sound like there's deed restrictions on that would make it fall into that category?
Which is possible to.
But I looked it up once, and it was my understanding that senior, federal housing is not affordable housing. Big sign says HUD housing, and it was my understanding that that was not included. In fact, I'm trying to think of where we had the discussion, but I had that discussion, and it's not included. Now, on the, what do you call it, the housing here, Pierce Hollow, it was rejected by the state because the state didn't want it to be senior housing. The state wanted it to be open to anybody. And that could be affordable housing, open to anybody, but the state wouldn't give it financing.
Got it. So that may be more of a state policy thing of the state is maybe funding projects that don't have that senior restriction. I am aware of senior only housing in other communities that is deed restricted or receives HUD funding that does meet that statutory definition. But again, I'm happy to kind of look into that in a little more detail because it is one of the strategies too, is if you have existing units that may meet kind of the intent, is there a way to make those count towards the 10% through the use of deed restrictions? Yeah, Nancy.
Our town is so unusual in that we have Heritage Village, that's 2,500. So, is there any way to redefine, or to put it on paper, that it is affordable housing? Is there any way to redefine it and
That's,
put a deed
you would
restriction?
have to, yeah, it would have to be deed restricted for X number of years, and they couldn't raise the rate above 30%, and you would have a difficult time
True,
passing that in Heritage Village.
even though so many units qualify.
Absolutely. The problem is, your rate structures in Heritage Village are based on the size of the unit. Okay, and because the property is size of your unit.
Yes.
So a carriage house pays less than a Berkshire because of the variance in size. So I doubt seriously if you could put in another different rate structure.
So to your point, Nancy, this is, what we've defined as what we call our naturally occurring affordable housing. And that's something that it's important to recognize that in your plan, while they don't meet the letter of the law per the state's definition of affordable, they may be within reach to households that have less than 80% area median income, which is what the state statute defines as the cutoff. So that can be recognized as part of your plan update as well. And I think another topic to potentially explore with you all beyond the Southbury Training School site is, kind of the Weston approach of do we look at perhaps allowing some sort of limited residential uses along Main Street, as long as they're designed in a consistent manner that meets the community's values, and perhaps set back from the roadway so that you reserve that frontage for commercial uses. I think another topic, again, kind of falling onto Main Street, is adaptive reuse, especially with all of the changes to the office market post-COVID. Towns may kind of get creative and how to better utilize that space. So that can be part of the conversation as well. And, like a POCD, this is not a regulation. So the plan is really a guidance document. And so while, we'd hope that it aligns with those community values and is something that can be acted upon, it doesn't have those, the same rule of law as your zoning regulations. So obviously, if you were to change the zoning regulations, you'd have to go through the usual public hearing process and have public input there as well. And so the last thing I want to touch on is our proposed schedule, because the state is requiring that your affordable housing plans be adopted by, I believe it's June 30 of next year, which is the cutoff. And so that's a little more condensed than the POCD, but I think the important thing is that it allows us to leverage the data analysis and some of our community involvement work. And then we'll work with the commission to craft those affordable housing plan goals and strategies, and we had discussed last time having a standalone document that could perhaps be an appendix to your plan as opposed to combining it into the document itself. And so there would need to be some sort of action taken by the commission in advance of your public hearing on adoption. That doesn't necessarily need to be a public hearing, although if you so choose, you're welcome to do a public hearing as well. That would just require that 35-day review period. Any other questions?
We have a village district, did you know that? You know that, South
I didn't know.
South Britton, too.
Do you have one on Main Street?
South Britton, too.
Yeah, we have two.
Okay, great. No, that's definitely something we'll.
Village district isn't.
Well, great. You guys have a leg up then in terms of having those things defined already. So.
Will our sewer avoidance in our POCD be respected as far as affordable housing goes? If it's, there is sewer water there, but other places in town?
So this is your plan. This is a town-driven policy action plan. It's not tied to what the state wants or what a private developer who may be using the 8-30G process wants. It's really the opportunity to enshrine your values. And so if not expanding the sewer service area is a thing you want to enshrine in the plan, then by all means, this is the time to do it. It's not going to eliminate the 8-30G process, unfortunately, but at least you're kind of making it known of where you'd like to steer certain housing types.
What other towns have you already completed? Not going to complete soon.
So we've incorporated this into the North Branford and Bethel POCDs. It's a little bit different than the 3 that we're currently working on, just because those were done before the state guidance. We actually have the Mansfield plan in draft that I can share with you, although they are taking a much more proactive approach. So I'll just ask that you take that with a grain of salt, and not necessarily that all their strategies are applicable to you all, but at least to see kind of the structure and how the plan would look.
One of the things that really hits home is that right now we've got 2 affordable, that I know of, 2 developers who developed affordable housing. Actually, just 1 developer. process, we thought that it should be, we should have more say in where the developer puts affordable housing. Right now, if a developer decides this site is appropriate for affordable housing, and we say no, and he threatens to go to court, or he does go to court, chances are he's gonna win. So we don't need something that says, well, we could do it here, or we could do it here. I think, I'm only speaking for myself, I think we need something that says, these are the sites where we would allow a developer to put affordable housing, and these are the sites where we would not consider to put affordable housing. My only problem is, there's like 4 bills in the legislature now, which are gonna change if they pass. And I don't know if this chance is good or bad, I don't know about that. But you can't use the character of the community, which people have used to get, to define affordable housing. And there's a couple of other things one among that I read that's off the wall, but it says if you're sued by a developer, A, the developer, chances are he's gonna win, B, you pay the total cost. That's pretty strict.
But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, the statute as it is now allows for a developer to put affordable housing
Wherever he wants.
wherever he wants. So, I mean, that's not
But that's
having to
because
do with anything that
that's
we
because
can,
we don't have a plan.
I don't think so.
I do.
Yes.
I think it's because we do not have a plan. If we had a plan.
No,
No,
you could put,
statutorily,
you could put it wherever.
Anywhere they
Alex
want.
is correct.
Now,
It doesn't have to,
Yeah, we'll never be able to mandate where.
we've already had the experience.
As long as it's zoned properly, they get approval and all that, they can do it.
now,
I don't
It
even
don't
think it
have
has
to
to
be
be
zoned
zoned
properly.
properly.
right,
As long as it doesn't
infringe on
endanger-
health
Health,
safety.
safety.
Health and safety,
Yes,
that's the only thing.
that's
that-
the only thing. It doesn't even matter, it could go into the zoning setbacks, it doesn't even matter.
As long as it doesn't violate the health safety standards, I don't think you have any say over where it goes.
Yeah.
So why even develop a plan?
Well, but I think a
Because that's
plan
also a
would
statute.
allow us to incentivize and support development and diversify the offerings, which may be great for economic development and have other benefits as well. So there are reasons for a plan. It also may help, commissioners make decisions on approving projects and things. But for an for the 8-30J, you could put it wherever you want.
Right now, and I did the calculations, we're gonna need, to meet our 10%, we're gonna need 785 affordable housing units.
I think
But all we have to do is put a
Yep.
plan together. We don't actually have to meet that
Right.
number.
Right, as long as we
We just have
begin,
to show good faith.
yeah,
Mhm.
begin to show that we're working towards, and designating areas, I think is a good start. And,
It may not hold up in court, but it's a recommendation.
but that's all that anybody else is probably doing at this point
Yeah,
either.
and inevitably, you're gonna have developers who are gonna use 8-30G to do what they want, but then you're gonna also have other developers who may come into the community and say, okay, I'm interested in this type of project, has the town specified sites where that might be appropriate, and that does give you control. Inevitably, unfortunately, you're never gonna be able to,
Until you meet the 10% criteria.
correct, which, to your point, is not really realistic, and anytime soon.
So question on your schedule.
Yeah.
Not counting your adoption, you're looking at 4 meetings with us.
So this is your POCD schedule. So what
Right,
we would
okay, so
plan on
it's
doing,
POCD.
yep, is hitting on affordable housing. I would recommend at least twice. One, to kind of go over our existing conditions. We'll ask some questions as part of the community survey tailored towards this topic. And then a second meeting where we can discuss some draft strategies and then have your input as we refine that as a separate document.
And you'll provide that draft.
Does the survey go out
Yep.
to every resident?
So our proposed scope and schedule would have one community survey for the POCD, And within that, we would maybe have some specific questions related to affordable housing as kind of a subtopic. And the intent would be that that would be a community-wide survey.
Yeah.
Some other towns have a specific survey for affordable housing.
Yep.
Woodbury just had a good one.
Yep.
Is there any way to enhance it, not just as a small part of POCD, but something very specific?
So yeah, we could modify our scope of services if you wanted to do a separate second survey. That's one option. So right now we only have one survey in our fee proposal. The other option, hold on, just lost my train of thought.
You were talking about the affordable housing questions. And
Correct.
Putting them in the,
Correct. We have one survey in our fee proposal. So if you wanted to do a second survey that was just focused on affordable housing, we could provide you with a fee of what that would be.
I might say that a single survey would probably be better because people may think, oh, I've done the survey
Mhm.
already,
yeah.
and it might get
once,
very
do it twice.
confusing because
Maybe it's
there's.
just more incumbent upon us to choose our questions
Yes,
wisely.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. And that'll be shared with you all in its draft form and get your input before that's launched publicly.
Yeah.
Other towns have some samples. Woodbury,
Mm-hmm.
I think, had a good one.
Yeah, great. Yeah, we'd be happy to take a look at that. And if there's any relevant questions that we could use here, we'll definitely do that.
And COG has some too.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a limit on the size of your survey that you're providing for POCD, that this is gonna be attached to?
So you mean like how long will the survey
How
be?
big will the survey be? 10 questions, 50 questions,
know about that.
20 questions? You must have an idea
What do you
because
think?
it's monitorized.
So
So you
I know.
know
I know.
how much you're planning on spending on this particular
There's phones
survey.
available.
it's not necessarily the length as much as, or the number of questions as much as it is how long do you make the survey to keep people's attention and have them complete it. So I say we shoot for about 10 minutes.
That's one of, that's one of the problems. If you wanna have an in-depth affordable housing questionnaire, and you wanna have an in-depth POCD questionnaire, you can't have it too big, otherwise people get halfway through it and say, screw it, I'm not even gonna get bothered with this. That's one of my fears.
I wouldn't do two without,
Pardon me?
I wouldn't probably do two myself, to be honest with you.
Have you done other towns
Like,
where
one's
the
enough. Like,
POCD
if I did two of them, I
questions
probably
and
wouldn't do the
affordable
second one.
housing questions were done in one
Well, it has to
survey?
be,
You know what I mean? It's, I
So-
think it's too much.
We've done
I think people are
North
just-
Branford and Bethel.
It's gotta be quick.
They I'd say were more kind of general questions.
Very
Since the three we're currently working on, we're asking a little bit more specific questions. I think it would just take a little bit more of an introduction of, this is what we're also trying to do as part of this process.
That could solve it, yeah. If you had an introduction to the affordable housing, that might serve the purpose so that people know what they're talking about.
Exactly, yep, provide
So
that education.
besides email blasts and town website, and things of that nature, what do you folks do, not only for the PCOD, but for this type of scenario, to get the townspeople to know that the surveys are upcoming at a certain date? What do you guys do?
So we rely on the town email lists as really the best
Okay.
method. Some towns have done their own
Article in the paper?
mailers.
Anything like that? Anything,
Sorry, can you say that?
article in the paper, you do that? at all?
That's recommended as well.
Okay.
If you have a local paper that has an online version that we can,
Okay.
have a hyperlink in, that would be great. And then in Mansfield, they wanted to do a town mailer, so they actually funded that themselves because it was important that they wanted it to go. Yeah, it was expensive. I think
Yeah.
they used all the money they saved from not having to do legal notices over the course of 2020, reprogram that.
Okay, that'd be good, because we need to get a good, response, otherwise we're just,
It'd be meaningless.
exactly,
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Will we get a copy of everything you presented tonight?
Sure. Yeah, I'll send it to Jessica.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
That was great. That was very informative. Thank you for
Great.
putting that together.
Yeah, excellent, thank you.
Thanks.
have you seen any enforcement scenarios at this point?
So as far as I know, the state is waiting till that June 30, 2022. Really the first communities to adopt are the ones that have done it before the state issued the guidance. So that's Bethel, North Branford, Essex. I heard you guys talking about before. They did theirs proactively. Fairfield. The first,
Thank you.
I'd say 40 or 50 communities that have done it through a Department of Housing grant are all finishing up over the next month or so. They're all on that June 30, 2021 deadline. And those are the 3 that we're working on currently.
We can apply for a grant also, right?
I'm not sure if they're doing another round
Grant for,
for affordable housing plans. There was a solicitation back in 2020. I think it was a $15,000 grant that maybe 30 communities around the state received. I think Woodbury maybe was one of those.
Did you find out, or?
Well, I think.
state's offering money, I know that.
The other thing I read was that you have to be at the 2%, at least at the 2% level,
To get the funding, to get a
to
grant?
get the funding.
Where are those rules?
That was.
Cause I'm looking at, you know, some information.
I talked to Hiram Peck about it, and he told me that you had to be at the 2% level, I believe it was 2% level to get, to get, put in an application. It doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna get it, but that's to put in the application.
Would you ask Hiram again, or?
We're working in Weston right now. I'm reasonably certain they are below 2%. And they did get the 15,000.
You're above
Yeah, there's
2%.
15,000, it says mentioned state offers 15,000 to towns to help pay for creative AHPs. Hiram is currently developing to 2 towns, but it's cost
But that was a previous.
20,000.
That was a
because
previous
of the town
solicitation,
meeting obtained
yep.
residential, but yeah, so there's 15 or 20,000 available.
I'm not sure if that's open anymore. They did a solicitation back in 2020.
This was just recently, like, 2 days ago.
Oh, okay, so they
Yeah.
must be doing another
on
round
that.
then. So if that is something the town,
Would you send me that link, please?
It's not really a link, it was an email,
Oh, okay,
but I'll get it over to you.
thank you.
yeah, and so that, could be something if we wanted to do more in-depth, if you were able to get that grant. I think our fee proposal was a little on the
Yeah,
leaner side,
sure.
just to be,
I
cognizant
mean,
of your
if we can
budget,
get someone
but
else's money to use, why not?
exactly.
That's perfect.
So you can keep us posted on that front.
Then we can do a mailer with that, right? We have enough money to do a mailer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Unfortunately, that would
if,
be the way
do you
to
know
get
if
the
once
demographics
a
is,
town achieves 10% of affordable housing, then can a developer still use the 8-30G or no?
No.
That's the incentive
Correct.
for
Yes.
putting the plan, achieving the plan,
Correct.
actually, not just putting the plan together. But even if you have a plan and the 10% is not achieved, then an 8-30 can go in, development can go in.
Correct.
Can you just go back a couple slides?
Yeah.
The one that showed the Southbury Training School, right there, right there. So 180 units here is not gonna meet the 10%, or it would,
It would,
not even close.
no, not even close, yeah.
780, right, is what
But it would show that, that's a giant step. up,
Right.
180 units. But that's if they could get the funding. They haven't been able to get the funding.
Right. That'd be a nice spot for it.
The only other mechanism that towns have is what's called a moratorium on
Yes,
8-30G. And so if a large project like that were to go forward, I don't know exactly what the threshold is. But if you were to have a large project like that, that could potentially provide you with some temporary relief from that statute.
And Ron, you said we needed 700 and how many?
780.
80?
Five, I think.
Yep, that's the number I thought. Sorry, guys, I should have remembered that instead of asking that, but that's a big project there, okay. Cool. Yeah, all right, thank you, that was awesome.
No problem. Thank you.
Anyone, any other questions for, okay, great. Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have you seen the plan for, already for that area of your file? We had it already engineered,
I think as part of the Southbury Training School study, we did take a look at the site plan, but I haven't seen
Yep.
it.
already engineered.
Yeah.
Just didn't pass the state for some reason.
All right.
Can you designate an area as a good site for affordable housing?
Sure.
That's kind of like what we're doing.
Right,
Mhm.
exactly.
Well, I was just thinking of this,
But it doesn't preclude somebody from saying, well, that's
Yeah, I
nice,
know.
but I'm still gonna put it
But
around.
Right.
I have 10 acres here that I can develop something. yeah,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but
All right. All right, let's see here. Moving right along, number 3, members' reports. Anybody? Nancy, you want to start? Anything?
Well, I got a copy of the minutes from COG, and
Okay.
our representative just talked about the guardrails.
Really?
Nothing else that was
Can
going
you
on.
do me a favor? I got old ears. I can't hear you.
My voice doesn't carry, but our liaison,
Yes,
each town gives a report to COG, that's part of the meeting.
yes.
Planning arm, not the executive arm. Every other month they meet, and our report, got the minutes of, I just gave it to Jessica, is, all he addressed was the guide rails. And it was still not a complete representation of the guide rails. You see it? So for Southbury, all we got represented was from Jay Caro. The Public Works Department has begun to erect steel guide rails along the scenic routes as per the understanding of DOT specifications. Group of citizens feel wooden guide rails would be less intrusive. For scenic routes, they filed a cease and desist order to halt Public Works installation of guide rails. Public debate and research over the types of guide rails to install along scenic routes, steel or wood. There is a need for a policy on guide rails which meet DOT specifications. Recommend COG attend town events related to car shows. That was only report from
It was done.
Southbury.
That was done.
It was done.
Yes, I know.
When's that dated?
This is their last meeting, so it was April.
Who's our representative there?
Jay Caro,
Does he know that that was done?
he never attends our meetings, so he doesn't know what's going on.
Yeah, he sent an email the other day, I saw that, he sent a bunch of Jeff Mandel about it. Did you see that?
I don't think I get those.
Yeah.
Jay Caro, C-A-R-O-W.
Yeah, I got that email.
And what did he say?
I didn't read it fully, so. Yeah.
Well, if he's gonna attend these meetings, I agree with you, he should
Supposed
attend
to be
these
here.
meetings.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And also, things happen even after our meeting. So what I used to do anyway was get a report from,
Here was on Tuesday, was,
our
workshop number 2, May 27, 2021, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. First second, please inform us when you're doing revision.
is that the executive or the planning?
Yeah,
That's the executive.
This is something different, yeah.
Yeah, that,
There was another one too, I don't know where.
but Dolores used to, talk about what was coming up,
Yeah.
Yes.
what what we looked at, what we decided, a much better report.
Yeah.
Something that was current even. I don't know. I think we should get either another representative or make it, I don't know how we could get him to our meetings.
Can't we say, if you're gonna be our representative, you could be you should be at our meeting?
Absolutely.
He wants us to give him documentation at every one of our meetings, tell us what we did at our meetings. I told him
But
he
it
did
should
their
be,
culture.
it should be covered in the minutes.
That's
It
what I
would
said, so
take
it's in the
That's a
nothing-
public document, just
it would
pull it
take-
off the website.
Exactly, it would take nothing for him to look
He
at
wants,
it.
he gave me an email saying that Dolores used to always give him a report, and I said, well, there's no one here to do that for you now, so you can pull him off the website, you can come to the meeting, you can listen to the video or the tape,
Yeah,
anywhere you
I
want to, we
mean,
have to brief on it, because
So
he
his
needs to
answer
take a little
was,
initiative, I think.
I think he resigned or something too after that.
Oh,
I remember seeing letters to the first selectman about it, I don't remember what it was.
so do we don't even have one?
I don't know, I don't think we do. I get so many emails, it's incredible.
It'd be good to get a volunteer from planning. That's what was done always in the past.
Right.
It's every other month, and it's just, maybe an hour or two. And it's so informative because you find out what every other town is doing also. You find out if there are grants, you find out if there's funding,
he
you
should
find
make a
out.
report here,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
because it'd be good to know what Seymour is doing in terms of planning, or
Mhm.
Beth, or I don't know if Bethel's in there, but, Norma Tucker, or any of those.
Yep.
Let's start by asking him to attend our meeting?
I asked him about 5 or 6 months ago. No response.
We can find someone to do it.
Does anybody know who he is?
It
I
was a,
know-
it was a,
I know of him vaguely only because he lives down the road from my parents.
He's on the zoning commission.
Yeah.
He's currently on the zoning commission? Jay Caro?
Yeah.
He's never been to any of the meetings.
I know.
Here
Oh,
in
every
town?
other meetings when I was doing it either. Oh, dear. But he is on the zoning commission,
Crazy.
but doesn't go to the meetings, so he's not coming here either. We need good representation at Concord.
Can you send him a letter and ask him, or email and ask him?
You said you contacted him.
I did, but not recently.
Yeah,
It's the same though as it was.
yeah.
I think more than it, let's find out what the status is. If you're thinking he may have resigned,
I remember seeing an email about something on to COG, but I know Jeff Manville is,
Yeah.
but I guess this guy was as well too, so
No,
It's a
no,
while.
no, that's a different meeting,
totally different meeting?
totally different meeting. There's an executive committee meeting, it has, the planning is totally separate.
Well, then, I don't know which one it was. I'll dig the email up and I'll send it over to Jessica and she can figure it out. That's fine if she wants to send it out
It'd
to
be
all of us.
interesting to find out if the guy's still
All the
alive.
first selectmen and mayors and stuff go to the executive meeting.
Yeah, this was a, it was a,
This is the planning arm, which is so informative.
yeah, it was a, it had to do with planning, I'm almost positive. I'll dig it out.
Okay.
So anyone else for member reports, anything? Anybody? No? Okay.
We have to take care of Harmon,
I'm sorry, what?
the Harmon replacement.
Members reports, right, is that other business, or if you do it now? So, we'll just do it now, members reports. So, Jessica, replacing, Harmon.
Correct. That would be through the,
The Republican Town Committee lady called me already.
oh, she did?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic.
And asked me who I thought would be, good, and I had mentioned, between Larry and Greg, that Larry had been here much longer, and I said I would double check on things, because she said we can just do it. And I think he was appointed, so we have to make the recommendation back to the board, selecting to do it, because he's not
Right,
elected.
they have to,
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
So I have to double check on that, maybe you can do that for us, just double check,
Check on,
if Larry was appointed or elected. I think he was appointed.
I
So
think
then
he
well,
was
but
elected too.
even then,
if
to
the person's
fill the
elected-
seat, you have to appoint them. Doesn't the board have,
If
the
they
board
were,
of
if they
selectmen
were
has to
an
appoint?
elected alternate, like they were elected by the election, we could just bring them up.
Well, at the same time, I think we've got to find out,
Yeah.
are
Does
either
he wanna
one
do
of
it?
them willing to step up to a
Correct.
full-time?
Exactly. I could call Larry and see what he thinks.
Okay.
Might as well do that, right?
yeah,
And then see if he
run
says
it by him,
no.
because if he's not interested, yeah.
Then I'll offer it to Greg and see what we can do from there. If not, then we'll have to,
So you'll handle that part and I'll find out if he's
Sure.
elected or appointed?
I'll just wait to, I don't need to hear from you. I'll just call him and ask him. That's fine.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else? Anything? Okay. All right, moving right along. Minutes. April 20th. Anybody have anything in the minutes that they want to change, add, like, motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion on it? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm gonna abstain because I was not at the
Yep.
meeting.
All right. Thank you. Minutes are passed. Any correspondence, Jessica?
Deb, is there any correspondence? No? Nope.
No,
Okay. Any bills at all, Debs?
no.
Okay. Any other business that comes before the commission? Anybody?
We asked Keith when he came
Yes.
about our minutes that, okay, so we just approved minutes. If there was an amendment, the amendment doesn't get to the public because suppose we amended
Oh, yeah,
sometime
we-
60 days later.
I never told
What
her.
are we doing?
Jessica and I talked about this. I didn't get to you on that yet.
Oh,
Yeah. It was,
So-
you and I talked about the reason behind it, that they put the amendments up after it.
yeah,
Yeah.
Because it gets approved at the so say
Right.
that you had,
right.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, so say that you had amendments for April 20th's
Right.
meeting. Those amendments would be talked about here and approved here at this meeting. So that's why they would be on for this. And
Yeah.
So they wouldn't reflect, it wouldn't be with the April 20th, it would be with
Correct.
this meeting.
So when the public looks up their minutes, they see the April 20th minutes. They don't see the amended minutes until May.
But that's just the way it is, because
I know.
that's the time schedule.
That's exactly what I mean. It's the way we've always done it. It's the way it is. Why can't we amend,
We have to put up
go back
another,
and amend the minutes and replace them
You can't do
with
that,
what they
it's
approved?
record.
You have to show the record
that.
changed,
why
right?
can't we just put up the amended one after it? As
Yeah.
the next one,
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
more
Or a
than one.
note that says these were amended, see
Document, whatever.
Yeah.
May meeting.
I'm not really sure
But there's, yeah.
how
probably.
that works, I'll have to look into that.
That's what Keith was gonna do, because sometimes it's not until 2 months later.
Right,
And so people have no clue.
well, I mean, if they follow, like,
If they follow
if they-
60 days from the day we, yeah.
if they know how it works, they'll check, but I will look into, I don't think you can add a note in there that says these have been revised, because at the time that they were approved, there wasn't a revision.
Right.
Exactly.
So I don't think you can add that note in there saying these were revised, please see the minutes for example,
But the minutes,
May.
but the minutes weren't approved.
That's right.
The minutes, the 20th Amendment, 20th was just approved tonight.
Right. And it won't appear,
And if
And
you're
if there
gonna
was
put it-
any
I understand it
corrections-
won't appear, but that's sort of like a draft until they're approved. In the village, if you're on a committee,
it says it.
you put out the draft, you put heading on
Subject
top,
to
it's a
approval.
draft.
right,
Right. Summary of the meeting, subject to approval.
right,
Right.
the following.
So they get approved tonight, if there's an amendment,
Yeah.
the amendment goes in this. You're amending them tonight, but they're gonna show up in next month's minutes. Yeah. May.
But
That's
I
exactly
understand what
right.
everybody's talking about. If I'm looking at the minutes and I see something is wrong,
Yeah.
that I think is wrong, how would I know to look at the next month's meeting or?
It's just
maybe-
Robert's rules, it's the way that procedure is. I guess,
don't think it's Robert's rules.
I don't think it's Robert's rules.
No,
I
it's
don't know
not.
what the
It's not Robert's
basis
rules.
for it would be.
Because I know we,
It's, huh?
I can only go by what we do.
Well, Keith was supposed to
Put out draft.
research it and
Yeah.
get back to
We're
us.
going
and-
by what
the town clerk does.
Right,
I was gonna
yeah.
say, I think this is gonna be more to the town clerk's jurisdiction.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Okay,
So-
that's why we put this little comment up here, that's what she wants on there.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
It's,
But I think to your point, what you're looking to do is-
supposed to do, however, it's not user-friendly at all.
I see.
Yeah. Not,
But if I understand you, Nancy, what you want is on the website. If I look up
So-
April, I wanna see April's minutes. If I look up June, I wanna see June's.
as approved. Yeah,
Yeah, I
because
don't
we
know
approve
if
it,
the website has to follow the same rules as far as where they eventually wind up.
The town
Oh.
clerk is the person that
But the
has
town
this.
clerk
as
is
long as they're on
gonna-
file in the town, I guess that's what meets the requirement, right? I would think.
I think that's, yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's a town clerk.
So, here we are under other business, so, the affordable housing, do we have to make a recommendation back to the board of selectmen that we want to bring on Malone McBroom to do this? Does everyone have
Wouldn't
that?
hurt.
I mean, cause we didn't really discuss that, we did talk about, is that the plan we all wanna do, do we wanna move forward on that? We didn't really discuss that,
Well, is that,
cause the other option is,
to
we
do it
do have a full
ourselves?
draft, and Jessica did say she would actually do the whole thing. I mean, I don't know if that's something you guys are, I think it's a lot of work,
I think that they will do it
it's
more
not that
complete
expensive.
and more thoroughly.
I think so, and take a little off your shoulders,
And you've got a lot going on.
yeah.
And with
They're
more,
already doing the
input.
POCD, so some of that
Right.
work is already being
It's
done.
Yeah.
gonna be,
So I think we should make a,
I personally don't wanna, I think we're under a bit of a time restraint.
Yeah,
yeah,
So if we go for an RFP now,
we won't get anything until.
we're gonna be
3
so
months.
far
Yeah.
behind.
yeah, I don't think we should do that, I think we should
So-
just make a recommendation back to the board and,
well, and then part of that recommendation is, given the, lack of support that our
staff, sure.
Yeah, staff,
Yeah,
given the lack of staffing to, do this plan, by the deadline,
and I think
You know,
it's a
will be
reasonable
very
thing
difficult.
too, I think it's reasonable.
Yeah, me too, I think it's really reasonable.
You want
So
to
maybe we should put
I
that.
think we should, yeah,
make a motion that we make a referral to the Board of Selectmen, that we engage, is it SLR?
Milo and McBroom?
That's not
Milo
done.
and Karoon, but whoever they are now.
Oh,
yes, their new name,
Oh,
So-
that's why, okay.
yeah,
I think it's
Okay.
SLR, something like that.
it is, it's Malone and
Yes.
McBroom
That's
SLR.
that's
Okay.
a camera, isn't
That
it?
we make a referral to engage their services for the affordable housing plan.
I'll second that.
Do we need to put in it as reasonable, timely, more professional than we have available, or anything like that?
We
Something.
can add in that, due to time restraints given,
Yeah, lack of staff help
lack
in
of-
town right
And
now,
reason-
yeah.
I
And
think,
they're
I
already
think they
working
go
on the
for it if it's a
POCD,
reasonable
so they
cost.
I think
They
it's
go
gonna be
for that
fine,
too.
they're gonna say yes all the way on it, I think
I
it'll be
think,
fine.
I don't think they're gonna have a problem with it,
Oh,
it's
good.
well under.
Yeah, I think it's
Yep.
fine,
Okay.
Great.
so,
So we have a motion and a second, right?
I second it, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? doing that? That'd be all right?
I'll do that.
Awesome, thank you. And one quick thing, a couple months back, when someone asked a question about, can alternates ask questions and participate
Yes.
and all that, and the answer is yes. They can do everything except vote, because they're not seated.
Yeah.
Okay? Is that, that's cool, everybody? Okay, so I want to make sure everybody had that. I know it came up as a question.
Yeah.
So we did look that up. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, motion to adjourn.